Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just about to begin and we're just inviting Shreya onto the chat. Please bear with us. Hi, Shreya.
Hi,
Thank you for joining us today.
hi, 1 second. I think. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. So, are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just give a short intro of who I am. I'm Ashima, and I am a guest host today at Girls Buzz. I'm a mother myself to two kids, and so I think a lot of the chat today I'll be able to relate to a lot of what you say. And for all those joining in today, I'll just give you a short intro about Shreya. So this is Shreya Bakshi joining us here today, who's a stay-at-home mom, and having gone through postpartum depression herself. Shreya takes pride in spreading the awareness for other mothers who suffer in silence through her Instagram channel that is raising underscore Shan. That is RAISING underscore SHAAN and all her blogs. So hello Shreya, and we're really happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I really was very excited to do this live. I quite like the topic that you all have selected. I think it's a great initiative from your end.
Absolutely, I think it's a very important, discussion that we need to have. So, what I'll do is I had a few questions in mind. I thought I would, we would take it from there. My first question being that we've seen your profile and you talk about postpartum depression awareness, and maternal health, mental health. So, can you just, elaborate a little bit more on that?
So see, maternal mental health involves a lot of things. It includes a lot of perinatal mood disorders like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis. I basically talk about postpartum depression mostly because of my experience and the knowledge that I have about it. But there are a lot of other factors also. So maternal mental health is, I think, one of the most important part of pregnancy, or like you could say planning a pregnancy, because whether it's depression or anxiety or baby blues, there is a major change, emotionally. There are a lot of changes that happens after you deliver. And I think if you are informed, if someone tells you what to expect, your postpartum phase, like your fourth trimester, becomes very easy to navigate.
True.
And that is what I try to do from my own experience and the experiences that I've gathered over the past 4 years. So this is basically the spectrum of entire, the maternal mental health, which is pretty much, gone unnoticed in India.
That's very true. Absolutely. So just, first getting into motherhood, I just wanted to ask you that, what is it that you enjoy the most being about being a mother? And the one thing that you absolutely love being about being a mother to Shan?
Honestly, when someone asks me what I love being a mom, let me tell you, when I first became a mom, I hated it. And I hated it, and how I couldn't bond with my child. It was such a nightmare.
Yeah.
Versus now, when he wakes up, when we play together, when I enjoy spending time with him. Like, I love to travel with him alone. I love taking him out. We have a very like a routine, mom son date thing. We spend a lot of time chatting with each other. Like, our bedtime routine, I think, is my most favorite part of the day, because morning we wake up with cuddles and hugs. That's different, but when we go to sleep, we really have deep conversations, and I'm the only one he has it with. Okay, so I feel very good about that. So I love being a mother. I absolutely love everything that comes with being a mother. And honestly, I never thought I would be saying that I love being a mom, but I really do love being a mom.
I absolutely get what you're saying. I have a 5-year-old son as well. So that mother and son time, that that
It's
bonding that
very
happens one on one, it's very, very good. And yes, the beginning is tough, but I think it gets easier later on as they are able to
yeah.
be more
As they
responsive.
grow up, as you also learn how to manage the routine,
Yes,
so it's basically experience plays a huge role here.
absolutely, absolutely. And would you say that motherhood has changed your perspective in any way, for in anything towards the world?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure. I think every mom will be able to relate to that. I think a switch flips after you become a mom. I am really not. I don't know who I was until I became a mother. Like I can't. I can't relate to that person. I think I have become more mindful, really kind, more empathetic because of Shan, more patient because of Shan actually. So
Yeah.
yeah, my perspective about a lot of things, about gender neutrality, about sex education, about mental health, about gentle parenting. A lot of it has changed after I became a mother. These are things I never even thought about until Shan happened. But yes, if you ask me, do I carry the same thought process which I had before Shan? No. So there has been a major shift in my personality and who I am as a person after I became a mom.
Absolutely. I absolutely relate to that as well.
Yeah.
Before we go on and carry on the chat, I just want to, inform all our viewers that you can reach out to us. You can ask Shreya any question today. There's a little question mark at the lower right corner, and you can click on that, send us a question, and we'll have you have that answered. So going on to the next thing, Shreya, we thought we'll now go deeper into what you talk about and what the awareness that you spread about. So I mean, you and I being a mother, and I know a lot of other mothers out there would also relate with us, is that it's not uncommon for us to face a lot of stress, especially when we are new moms, right?
Correct.
So, do you have any advice, and how can somebody cope with this sort of a roller coaster journey of being a mother, and how can they first prioritize their mental health before anything else?
So see, I strongly believe everyone who plans a pregnancy or whoever's pregnant right now must have a birthing plan and a postpartum plan. So what I mean by postpartum plan is having a discussion with the family, primarily the next caregiver, whether your husband or whoever, about how you're going to go ahead. Like um, your if you are on the same page if it comes to formula feeding, if you're on the same page if it comes to hiring outside help,
Yeah.
where would you want to deliver, which parent do you want to go to, like do you want to stay with your, like I was happy to stay with my in-laws, but a lot of people want to go back to their parents. A lot of, like, if you've seen my recent post, you can see how the in-laws created a huge ruckus and all of that. Uh, so if when you have these sort of conversations with your husband or the primary caregiver, there is a lot of transparency about what step to take once you deliver, so that kind of eases it out a lot. That's one post birth plan. Knowing about a lactation counselor in the city, it is very important you know that, because
Yeah.
as much as I advocate formula feeding, I genuinely acknowledge the fact that the formula trap is for real. You
Absolutely.
A mother is free to formula feed even if it's a choice, but if you are feeding formula feeding thinking you're not lactating enough because you don't know how much you should be lactating, I think that's being misinformed. So having a lactation counselor really helps in counseling, because uh, every mom, I think, stresses about breastfeeding initially, so that kind of really affects your fourth trimester. It's also
Yeah.
one of the major causes for postpartum depression, the guilt associated with not breastfeeding and all of that. Third is, I genuinely think you should ask for a mental health screening during your 6-week checkup, which I think is the most important part. It's still not mandatory in India like other Western countries, but it's basically a questionnaire. It's called the EDPS scale, which all practitioners know of. I think you should ask for it so that it gets evaluated. Not all gynecologists, screen you for your mental health during the 6-week checkup. If they do, well and
Mhm.
good. If they don't, you must ask for a mental health screening, because reading my blog or any other blog on internet about postpartum depression, knowing what it is versus your family being informed by a doctor, there's a huge difference. That
Yeah.
people will believe the doctor more, people will be convinced by a doctor more, especially traditional families जिनको लगता है कि mental health तो ऐसे ही बकवास है, it's just an excuse. So I
True.
think these 5 things, when you keep in mind, I think your postpartum phase will be better. And if you ask me, I think your first year, in fact, the first few months, the first 4 to 5 months, support plays a huge role. And how you are in the first 4 to 5 months will actually determine what your postpartum phase is like. So when you're prepared this way, I think it's easier to navigate. And I'm saying this with experience because I know of my own friends, who have done this, and they've not faced a hurdle. Like, they knew how to manage because they were prepared.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, going by what you've said, and another really good topic that you touched on is, the kind of support that you can receive from people around you. So, we would love to hear your, a share of your experience with how you handled the situation very smoothly and the way you managed it. So, how did that support come through for you?
So I'll tell you, I didn't manage the situation very smoothly at all. I had really good support. Yeah. I have my postpartum phase was the worst period of my life, keeping aside the depression part also. So I'll tell you, my mom had cancer while I was pregnant. Okay, so she was undergoing chemos. So from the day I delivered, her radiation began. Okay, so that was one thing that was happening. So my son was also born with clubbed foot. So his plasters needed to be, we were supposed from the 10th. So his plasters were supposed to start from the 10th day. He had neonatal jaundice. I had a brain hemorrhage on the 8th day of my delivery. Like, it started from the 4th. I got diagnosed by the 8th. I had to leave Shan in Jamshedpur and I had to travel to Chennai. So it was as bizarre as it could get. But as far as support is concerned, my mom was physically not fit enough to take care of me. But because she couldn't, she would come to my in-laws house. So I stayed 15 minutes away from my paternal house. So they would come here. My in-laws, my sister-in-laws, everybody actually, it was like they shielded me like this. Like, I barely could stand and they kept me alive. They just kept me alive. My mother-in-law would feed me. My sister-in-law flew down from US to take care of Shan because, there was no one here. And she's not even a mother, so and she's scared of kids, like literally scared of handling a newborn, but she took care of him. My other sister-in-law who has a child, she was of a lot of help. The other one is much younger. She stood up. Everybody, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, everyone backed me. Like, I was invisible as a mother for the first 20 days of Shan's life, and my in-laws really helped me go through it. But in spite of that, I had postpartum depression. In spite of all the support in the world, I had postpartum depression. So,
But it's so refreshing to hear that you got that kind of support from your in-laws.
I had massive support. I have massive support from my in-laws during my pregnancy, after my pregnancy, even today. Like, I remember when I had to switch to formula because I was put on neuro medications that wasn't going with breastfeeding. And I remember, like, I kept trying so much to breastfeed that, he stopped gaining weight and I was falling sick because I couldn't take the medication. There was some problem happening and I had to switch to formula overnight. And my mother-in-law used to we all laugh about it now, but there was a point where I genuinely believed my child will not love me because I'm feeding him formula. I was that naive back then, and my mother-in-law had told me one thing, that your definition of a mother is not by what you feed your child. You have your entire life to be a good mother and to develop that bonding with him. Whether you're feeding, whether you're breastfeeding or formula is not how you can define yourself. And I swear to God, that stayed with me. And I'm so glad she gave me that advice because it helped me. Like, really helped me. So support, I think, plays a really, really important role.
Absolutely. So I think, I mean, from our conversation, what I've understood is that you've received a lot of support from your mother-in-law and also from your mother, who herself was going through a lot at that time, but she was there for you in every way possible. So is there any guidance that you can give to say that how can a mother, you being a mother yourself now and having such strong mother figures around you, build this sort of a support system around them?
Mm, I think it's what I think they did was they just let me be. My mother-in-law specifically, she trusted me with my own ways of parenting because I didn't do anything that they did, and that's what she tells me. Like, whether when it came to formula feeding, also the way I did it, I of course did it under my pediatrician's advice, and even when it came to introducing solid foods, I didn't follow the traditional way. I did it how people are doing now. I had guidance there also. So she was never like, हमने ऐसा किया है तो तुमको अभी ऐसा करना पड़ेगा, like that. So that kind of that freedom to explore, plus being a gentle parent, I come from a traditional Bengali family. My in-laws are also like that, so we've all been hit and scolded, and अच्छे से मार
Yeah.
के तुम लोग बने हुए हैं. But so that is the concept they relate to, but they appreciate the fact that I'm trying something else. So it's basically like, they just let me be. They trusted my parenting capabilities, and it's like the mindset that they carry, that हमने अपना time पे कर लिया है. So you do what you
True.
think is best. We are here.
Yeah.
तुम करो अपना. So that helps. Of course, when I if I'm wrong, they correct me, which is fair enough. But I had never had a situation where they were like, follow the traditional rules or follow my way of parenting because I know better. कभी
Yeah.
नहीं हुआ है. So that kind of really, that is how I think I became a mother also. So that also helped. So basically, I think when you let her, when your mother is informed, and you just let her, follow her cues and everything, not only does it is it it's not only is it the right way to go, but it also helps the mother develop that confidence. So I
True.
think that played a vital role.
Yeah, very true. So going on to again, one of the posts that you had put out was, "Were you hit as a child?" It's a very strong post and it's a very relatable post, you know. So any insight into that that you can
So
share? That
yeah, I tell you why I put that post. I keep getting DMs whenever I put a post on gender parenting, and a lot of it were about like, I try to control, but मैं बहुत मारती हूँ बच्चों को. That was one. Another that keeps coming is, I teach my child that मारना नहीं होता है, बातें सुननी होती है. You're not supposed to, argue back. You're supposed to be polite. But when the child does not listen, I hit the child to teach the child a lesson. This was another thing that came. Another was, when I get angry, I need to hit my child, otherwise he doesn't listen. And the another observation I figured out when I would talk to them was, when I would ask them what their childhood was like, all of them used to be hit as a child. So what happens is, this is what generational trauma is. You unintentionally, you probably know कि ये गलत है, but unintentionally the trauma resurfaces, especially after you become a parent. If you've been hit as a child, it takes double the amount of effort to unlearn and to restrict that instinct कि whenever you're losing it or whenever you're triggered, हाथ ना उठाओ. So that becomes further more challenging for people who have been raised like that.
yeah,
Like, who've been hit. So that's why I made that post, like, were you hit as a child? Because if you have to follow the process of unlearning it to not repeat it with your child, because you have to identify. And it's very simple. You either see, for me, I think my inner child healed when I took therapy. It really helped. But basically, the summary of it is to identify your triggers, to understand that hitting is physical abuse, unless that gets into your head that I am, like, that hitting is not a part of being a parent. Hitting is basically you losing your self-control. Hitting is
yeah,
basically you not being able to handle the child. And often when we hit, it is more about we not being able to digest कि बच्चा बात नहीं सुन रहा है, than the fact that child has really done a great mistake. It's
yeah,
mostly a parent not being able to regulate their own emotions when they're like really triggered. And this is, like I said, it's very common in people who have been raised like that. So
Yeah.
that was what this post was about.
So then, in that case, how would you suggest that you deal with a child who's very stubborn and without hitting the child? What are the other methods that you can suggest?
I think conversation sorts out everything. Um,
Hmm.
uh, and if you ask me, I genuinely don't believe in labeling children, especially toddlers, because they have a lot of emotional changes. They're growing, they're developing. So what we see as stubborn is probably they feeling unheard. Like sometimes a child says कि मुझे खाना नहीं है, I will not eat it. So
Hmm.
for us as parents, a lot of times it's like I put in so much effort to cook your food. I got up in the morning and I prepared food for you. It is your favorite food. I have done so much for you. How can you still say no? So
Yeah.
it's all about what you are feeling as a parent and not about the fact that the child is not keen. So so that's where I think conversations help to make them understand that you eat this. Afterwards, like in the next meal, you can again say what you want, and I'll try and prepare that for you. Or maybe like let's not waste food, just eat this. Or is there something else that I can cook? So basically, when you have conversations, you're able to understand your child better, and it kind of reduces tantrums. If a child understands that no matter what they do, like being stubborn, being crying or whatever, uh, my parent is going to hold a space for me. I think a child automatically uh, they are no longer वो नहीं होता है कि I need to take it out. Their anger, their frustration slowly it comes down because they learn how to communicate. They understand what they are feeling, and I've seen this with Shan. I was not this child, but I think because I followed the lead of a lot of gentle parenting coaches, yeah, I see it reflect on Shan. So he's very conversive instead of like throwing a tantrum. That
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah.
Communication, teaching them about emotions, it really helps.
Yeah. So, do you think there are some actions that, some things that parents do that actually make the children maybe stubborn or afraid or repulsive?
See, I think punishing a child all the time, disciplining a child, these are mistakes I have made initially. Like, you always telling him what to do. ये गलत है, ये सही करो, पैर
Yeah.
सीधा करके बैठो. When you keep, poking them all the time to do the right thing, they automatically are a little like, they're not very comfortable. So I think tarika hona chahiye. There must be a way to do it than doing it all the time. And yeah, I think it's mostly that. Um, but yeah, so it's basically if I personally feel that that's what I do. That if you push a child too far, or you don't see, if you see a child uh, like a part of you कि उसको मेरे ही तरीके से काम करनी है, and he only has to listen to me. I
Yeah.
cannot take feedback from him. I think that's when, like you said, uh, they become resistant. They become stubborn.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Again, just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions for us, for Shreya, please drop in your little chat in the question in the chat, where the question mark is on the lower right corner. Going on to the next question would be that there might be times or that you have disagreements between you and your husband about how to raise your child or the techniques. So how do you deal with such a situation?
We've had a lot of these in the first year. It was only fights because like the depression part was playing up, but we always had a disagreement about our parenting method, about weaning, about sleep
Yeah.
training, all of that. So what we've learned is my husband has basically left it up to me. He accepts that he's not informed as I am, and he just lets me be. I discuss with him before we, like, even gentle parenting. It's something, there are times when he's a gentle parent by nature, but there are times when he loses it. For me, it's like an effort. For him, that's his personality, I guess. But the times when he loses it, no, I to go and tell him, this is there was a better way to go about this. So he tells me, like, we have discussions before we make decisions. And I think over a period of time, again, everything I strongly believe comes down to communication. We've been able to communicate really well without taking it personally anymore. So in the first year, everything was, I know this better for my child. That was the feeling that came in between two parents. Versus now, it's like we put our points together and we analyze. We have like a proper discussion, and then we go about it, whether it comes to his, like, what activities he should be pursuing, how should we be raising him, and school selection, all of that we've had. And these have been like, we are never on the same page on anything. Like, I think somehow we just cannot agree. So this is like a proper exercise for us, where we do this on weekends, on weekends, when I know we have to like make a decision.
Yeah.
So that has helped. We've our fights as parents have really disappeared now. Now that you've asked me, it actually makes me think. I think it's been like years since we've had like a parenting disagreement.
Oh, that's a really healthy relationship and a very healthy thing to have. So I have my last question for you from my end would be that you have this blog about women who are suffering in silence. So is there any? Would you like to share any experience, any instance that has really touched you?
Yeah, something that happened yesterday. In fact, a few days, two incidents. If you've read yesterday, I read my post yesterday. It was, so this is the Maternal Mental Health Week. Okay, so I made a post on postpartum suicide. It was the stories about Nima Bhakta. She if you can just go and read that post on my feed. And I had a mom reach out to me saying that uh, she has been suicidal for the longest time. She thinks about ending her life, and she didn't know that postpartum depression was even a thing. And when she happened to read this post, she sort of realized that it's not her. It's probably that she's not even unhappy in life, and it's a disease acting up. And she told me that today I got the clarity that maybe I will never end my life. And she took a reference of a psychiatrist, and I'm hoping she said she'll get back after she books an appointment. So let's see. That's one. Another thing is, just the day before yesterday, I had made a post about a mom who was really ill-treated by her in-laws, and her parents didn't stand up for her. This mother who reached out, she walked out of her in-laws house, and after that she messaged me saying that she shared this post with her father. And because it was the same thing, like, adjust kar lo thoda. And she said that, do you see if this, and her father's, what she told me was her father's reaction to the post was कि ये तो गलत हो रहा है उसके साथ. And then the girl said that, then why are you not standing up for me? And she walked out of her house. I don't know what the future is for her, but she just said that it feels nice to have done the right. And sometimes what happens is, we, especially with women in India, we are raised to adjust. That's how many daughters in India have been raised.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
when you see injustice being done to others, you learn to stand up for yourself, because that is, we all need a trigger to act. So for a lot of people, when you read this, you realize कि हाँ मेरे साथ भी तो हो रहा है, तो ये तो गलत हो रहा है. Because somewhere down the line we normalize it so much, we don't know when to stand up. So that helps. So yeah, I think when we talk more about these things, people understand कि ये मुझे tolerate नहीं करना है, ये गलत
Yeah.
है. It's not just in my head. So that helps. But my biggest win, I would say, as a blogger, like you said, speaking of women, is when families who do not believe in mental health make that appointment with the psychiatrist. Husbands, when they understand what the wife is going through my blog, it just gives me like a lot of satisfaction, which is what I realized in the past 3 days. Because this week friends with the entire mental health thing, and I received really like real positive feedbacks from families where they are making that change in their home. So that really, really makes me happy. Really makes me happy.
That's amazing. That's really amazing work. And would you like to give out any message for our mothers out here who have joined us today?
Um, if you Okay, so based on my experience, I have to say that, have realistic expectations. You do not have to do what any other mom is doing. Be informed, and you set your own rules for your family, because it's okay if another child is, self-feeding. It's okay if another child is writing at the age of 3. You don't have to do that. You do what works for you. You take what you want to absorb. You take what you want to apply in your life. But what others are doing and what you like about what others are doing is not that defines you as a good mom. So, that entire mom guilt also, that I am not doing enough for my child, I think we need to work past it. Like fathers, how often do we hear of dad's guilt, So it's like you have to lower down your expectations of what you do as a mother also. And most importantly, prioritize self-care. If you're only being a mother 24/7, 365 days of the year, you will not enjoy being a mother. You will experience burnout. So take out some time for yourself. Self-care is not a crime. It's not supposed to make you feel guilty. You are supposed to, nurture the person who you were before you became a mom. So when you do all of that, your life becomes simpler. And like I always say, put your mental health, put your sanity before anybody else. Wo agar gaya, your life is going to become miserable. So put yourself first, and life, it gets better.
Great. Thank you so much, Shreya. Thank you for sharing all your life experiences, and it was so wonderful talking to you. Shreya has a beautiful blog. And she has a Instagram page called raising_Shan. So please do follow her. She has some, beautiful stories that she shares, things that she talks about postpartum depression, about women's mental health, and there's a lot to learn from your page. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad you had this discussion and you chose me. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.